Read. Okay. Yolanda Maureen to read a short scripture from the New Testament.
You'll have to excuse me for pronouncing it incorrectly. All right. I'll help you out. That same day there, Jesus come out of the house where he been, and he go and sit down close to Lake Galilee. And the crowd were gathered round being so big that he get into a boat. And he sat down in the boat, whilst the people them being a stand up on the shore. Then he tell the people, parable, for land, plenty thing. He said, one farmer gone to a field for plant seed. Whilst he been scatter the seed, some fall along the path. And the bud them come and yam them up. Some seed fall upon top of ground where they been heap of stone. And the end being but a little bit of dot. The seed sprout and start to grow quick, because the dot end being deep there. But when the sun gets hot, it burn the leaf of the plant there. The roots ain't grow enough in the ground, and they wilt up. Some seed fall into the briar. The briar grow up and choke the plant there, till the end being able to grow. And some seed fall upon top good ground, and the plant them bear. Some plant bear 100, some bear 60, and some bear 30 times more than what he start with. And then Jesus said, Una got ye for ye, ain't it? Then Una must I think I'm gonna read this last line.
Wait there.
The last words.
Ah, right there. And then Jesus said, Ona got year for year, any? Then Ona must year. Why they see?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yolanda. I'd now like to ask Rita to she can translate that first.
You can all translate it yourself. Go get the Bible and King James Version. Easy. Which one was
Matthew
that?
chapter 13.
That's Psalm.
Verses 1 to 9.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can go and read it tonight. That's homework. At a symposium, we like to give you homework.
The parable of the seed and the sower and the seed.
Yeah.
Right, so parable of the sower and the seed.
Yeah.
Right, so we also have seeds here,
Right.
rice seeds.
So we want you to learn
this
hands-on.
This particular variety of rice is what the farmers call barley grain. Don't ask me why they call it barley grain, but they call it barley grain. Yeah, and so I have envelopes here as well, and you're all welcome to have some. These are fresh seeds. I should say something about the hill rice. The seeds are viable for just 1 year. Once a year has passed, the germination rates fall off dramatically. So these seeds were harvested just like last month. So these are very fresh seeds. So you have a whole year in which time you can still plant these. So you can also plant them in different areas if you wish and see how the parable applies. This. Right?
And the envelope is for donation because you already started worship service this month.
Actually thinking, now that you've said that, you give me an idea actually. Donations are welcome, you know, because this activity, I don't know which of the sowers I may be in terms of this activity, this symposium. I'm not seeing that many fruit here this morning. But I'm seeing good quality.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the parable caters for the quality of the harvest as distinct from the volume of the harvest. Okay. But please allow me to indulge in some rambling to some extent. There are a couple of things I'd like to say. and concerning the symposium and genesis of the symposium. And I also want to just say something before that. Most of you may be familiar with the word American by now. I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't know something about Americans, But yesterday morning when I woke up, I actually got some sleep that night. When I woke up, it just dawned on me that when Americans came to Trinidad, first came to Trinidad, there was no fanfare, right? We are here at the archives, and you can actually find some documents here in the archives concerning the original settlement. There are documents called the colonial dispatches, which were correspondence between the colonial secretary and the governor of Trinidad, British governor. At the time when the settlements were established, the governor was Woodford, one of the most well-known of the governors. There's a square downtown called Woodford Square, which is named after him. And there's a lot of debate, pros and cons as to whether they should be here, whether they should not be here. But the main thing I wanted to point out was that there wasn't much fanfare, And I just thought I should mention that in the context of the symposium itself, and Queen Quet's presence in Trinidad, and David Shields and Jim and Tony's presence. There isn't really much fanfare. Had this not been in the newspaper today, not many people may have known about it, apart from what has been placed on Facebook, right? I did try to get a number of other people involved and government officials involved, but not much has been forthcoming at this point. But I felt, when I thought of it yesterday, I said, maybe it's quite an order. In some strange way, maybe it's quite an order that it's that way. There were many things I wanted to do. I literally exhausted my finances in the process, so I couldn't do some of the things that I wanted to do, which would have, allowed me to promote it more and so on. But I just thought maybe it's just perfect that it be this way, and sometimes you just have to make small steps and take it from there, right? Those who are not here would certainly quickly discover how much they have missed by not being here. So we proceed. What really inspires the symposium? A number of events. First of all, I grew up growing hill rice. My family grew hill rice. I'm American. My ancestors on my father's side, I can clearly point, they came along the original settlers. On my mother's side, there may be something, but it is not very clear cut. But the thing is, we grew up planting hill rice, and 3 years ago, I wanted some for a friend was having a function, and I wanted to get some rice for the function. It was August. Independence actually. Our independence celebrations are on the last day of August. And I had to make, miles and miles going through different places where I knew people planting the rice, trying to get some, I knew vendors who would sell. And nobody had it. It took me a long while. I spent all day down in Moruga. There's an area called Marak, which is further south from the company villages. And eventually I got some. I didn't get back home until about 10 o'clock at night. But that experience made me realize that there's something really needs to be done to revive this tradition, because there are just a few people who are planting their rice now, and mainly elders. And if that continues, the tradition will diminish significantly. So that night or the day after, I started a group on Facebook called Grow More Hill Rice in Trinidad and Tobago. And then I began to put different posts on Facebook, and then I went to Charleston last year to some rice activities. Bob was with me as well. So we did some documentation, they're talking to elders. And what shocked me when I got to Charleston is that, I was hoping to interview rice farmers, and there were none. We couldn't find any rice farmers. We found a couple of elders who experienced growing rice as a child in the 40s and 50s, their parents or their grandparents grew rice and so on, you know. And I was totally shocked. I thought that there was still a tradition of growing rice in Charleston, given one that I had read about Charleston. My decision to go to Charleston, however, is connected to something else. In 2010, I went to Sierra Leone on a hunch, partly trying to trace some of my family and ancestry, partly based on some other research I was doing. And getting to Sierra Leone, it suddenly dawned on me, you know, I began to get a deeper appreciation of the connection between Charleston and Sierra Leone, you know. And then I had known about the work of Opala, but I never paid it much attention. But on that trip to Sierra Leone, it got a fresh impulse, you know. So from 2010 up to last year, I was saying I must go to Charleston, you know. And I began to pay much more attention then to the Gullah Geechee culture. There are lots of pages on Facebook, so I began to, you know, share their pages and so on my timeline. And eventually I got there last year. And I was really excited. I went, how long we planned to stay at First Dawn? Just a few days, 2 to 3 days. And I ended up spending about 6 weeks or so, roving from Charleston to DC, from Charleston to New Orleans, Charleston to Georgia and so on, because, you know, Charleston had whetted my appetite. And there were lots of resources and people who were involved in rice research and so on in Charleston. So I came back home last year, you know, thinking I could do an exhibition or something between that to get people more and to share the information I had gathered. When I came back home, my phones crashed, my computer crashed, everything seemed to be going against it, you know. Tony and I discussed it and he was saying, well, why not leave it for another, you know, for another time when you can plan it better and all of that. But at the end of the day, I had to leave it for this year, you know. And so here we are. In the run-up to planning this, I found myself in Charleston again. Didn't quite plan to be there, but I ended up there again, with David. And I also found myself making some other trips to Suriname among the Maroon people, to Carriacou, and so on. But the thing is, wherever I went, even among the Maroons, the tradition of cultivating land rice is diminishing significantly, you know. And I decided, well, you know, this really needs to be done. And a coordinated effort needs to be done to revive the tradition in the various places. So the symposium is meant to fill that void. And I have more details about the symposium in today's The Guardian newspaper, as I mentioned. So that's put it in a nutshell, or rice grain, as the case may be. It's important to make the connections as well between rice cultivation in the Caribbean and rice cultivation in West Africa. So I have spoken a bit about that, and in the conference logo, which you find on Facebook, you know, it's connecting the grains of rice. The rice really is being used as a metaphor for people. So the rice came with people. And then in the artwork you see a lady with one of her locks as well. For those of us who may be wondering how rice came to the New World, there are many stories, especially in Suriname among the Maroons, telling of how the African women carried rice in their hair, in the natural scheme of things. And that's how so many varieties of rice actually came into Suriname during slavery days. Right? So that's just about it.
Couple of minutes.
Okay. So apart from that, there's the whole question of the economic botany and the study of ethnobotany, and the archives plays a very important role in that again. There are lots of resources here in the archives. The archives here was actually my second home for quite some time, back around 2002, 2003, up to about 2005. Sometimes I was the only researcher in the archives on many days. You know, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much. Mrs. Belfon. Miss Belfon, Mrs. Belfon. Miss Belfon. Thank you very much for affording me the privilege of using this space. Okay. And I can't. Sorry? Right, good. Right, so good. So Tony is going to make a presentation in a short while, but it's just a bit of time as any to invite you to say a few words. And before doing that, just to get you a little warmed up, we have a couple of things that we plan to donate to the archive. I thought we can do the presentation now before you get warmed up. Yes, so we have quite a few presentations, so we would start with Queen Press.
Good morning. How are the children do?
Wanna do fine.
We're glad for day with all the homes and everything like that, and we love archives. Everywhere we go around the world, we stop in the library, we stop in the archive. So I like to not only take things, I like to give something, some seed to the archive here. So this is an entire set of the books that I have written about not only Gullah Geechee history and culture, but also some books that y'all would understand, thinking about family, okay, the novel, and then also some books about spiritual connections and inspiration. So I am still in the midst of autographing these last ones, but I'm going to let you hold the ones that's done. I'll hold the ones I'm still working on.
That's it.
Yes, but it is a blessing to be here. This is my first time in Trinidad and Tobago. And so to have the opportunity to be in the archive, literally. I never thought I'd be put in the archive, right? But then to also have my work be able to be a part of your archive is definitely a blessing. And so this year, your archive makes the second place of major national significance where my books are, because they are also in the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington. All right? You are so welcome. So I will sign the rest of them as long as you don't sell them on eBay. No. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the work. And you have on the perfect colors, indigo.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so maybe Roxanne, don't go too far. Maybe Roxanne can help you with the books.
That's okay.
And
Okay,
then
so,
go to a photo.
Yeah.
yeah, so we have some more presentations.
Yes.
Oh yes, certainly. By all
So,
means.
good morning, everyone. I
Good morning.
arrived late, and my apologies for that. But I'm really happy to host Mr. Morin. As he says, he spent many hours here at the archives. So we consider him part of our family. And we are, of course, interested in supporting his research. In addition, I don't know if it was said before, but this year we at the National Archives, well, not this year, for the decade, we worked the decade of, that the UN decade declared for persons of African descent. One of our commitments as part of that is to increase the material that we have related to persons of African descent. So we've already started out, right? And of course, as part of that celebration, we worked along with the American community this year, who are celebrating their bicentennial of their arrival in Trinidad, and well, Trinidad mostly, but it was the country of Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the things we learned in our journey, sharing their arrival and things that they brought to Trinidad, of course, is the Hill Rise. So I'm really interested in hearing a lot more about the cultivation of Hill Rise, its origins, and how it can be encouraged more in Trinidad and Tobago. And you will hear, I know you may hear if you're here longer, that there's always the interest to ensure that we can feed ourselves and improve in terms of our agriculture and our production here. And this is just another opportunity, I believe, for that. And it is really important. We know that a lot of people are not aware. Certainly when we went around talking about the American story, having the exhibition in various parts of Trinidad, we haven't gotten to Tobago as Americans yet, but we've realized that so many people don't know about their story, how they came here and their contribution to the society. So this is just one additional benefit of this symposium, and we do hope that the information gets out there. Welcome to you all, the visitors, and of course our colleagues from Trinidad and Tobago, And I wish you all success for the rest of the week and a very fruitful symposium.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, but you have more things to collect. You have more presentations to read.
I need my one desk.
Yes.
All right.
Right,
So I'll stay right here.
I'd like to call on Professor David Shields to make a presentation.
There are two books here. One is the sort of agricultural and culinary history of the Low Country. And since the Americans, the Fourth Company was recruited in the Sea Islands of Georgia in December of 1814, a lot of the food that is in this book is your food. The second book is a chronicle of the greatest chef that existed in 19th century Charleston, who began as a slave, Nat Fuller. And at the end of the Civil War, he held a feast for racial reconciliation, where he stood as host and invited everyone to come. Chef Benjamin Dennis was one of the two chefs who prepared the feast that took place on the 150th anniversary of that original feast.
Thank you so much.
We now call upon Professor Tuten. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Right.
That's what she said.
Yes, don't you?
This is big.
Merry Christmas. Let me say one for yourself. Okay. Yes. Merry Christmas and Jack.
Oh, I'll be fine. I'll
Yes.
get you guys to help.
So it's a pleasure to be here, and Tony and I got to spend some time in the archive yesterday, and that little bit of time, it was pretty exciting, I have to say, to see some of what you had. And your staff is incredible. I want to say that. They really are. So these are just a couple of my book on. Because a part of the story of rice in the Low Country was a sort of rise and then a precipitous fall, a short stop at the Civil War, right about the time that Nat Fuller was at his peak and hosting that famous dinner. And then a new beginning. And that new beginning rose again and declined again, as we will talk about some more later, and as Francis alluded to. But anyway, that's part of what I tried to capture there. Hopefully we have now a new beginning, I think, of rice, a few decades in South Carolina. Hopefully a renewal here of the rice.
Yes, very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, there's more yet. Some people could not be here, but they, I told them that they can still make a contribution. One of the persons who has been very helpful in helping me to bring this together is a lady called Jane Aldrich, who is based in Charleston. I tried my best to get her to come, but she just was trying to be as politically correct as possible. But she was involved with a project called the Low Country. Sorry, let me get it right. The Low Country Rice Culture Forum, right? And these CDs here are the proceedings from some activities which were hosted by that organization. So on behalf of Jane Aldrich, I think we can present. Another lady who has been extremely helpful is a lady in Charleston called Ella Carlitown. I don't think this would have been possible without Ella Carlitown. Just like to present this to you on behalf. Then on my own behalf, I'd like to present you with this. This is a small publication I did for a workshop last June. And when I travel, I think of the archives. So there was a recent event in Carriacou, which is very significant. There is a strong African tradition. Many African traditions have survived in Carriacou. Partly through song and dance. In Carriacou, they have lots of ancestral traditions, and they have something called the nation dance. And through the nation dance and the nation songs, people remember their ancestry. So there are various tribes, and one of the tribes, the Temne, the descendants of the Temne are from Sierra Leone as well. And the Temne are heavily involved in rice cultivation in Sierra Leone. And quite interesting, they were able to establish the links between, there are historical links, but one particular researcher was able to actually look at a woman dancing, a video of a woman dancing, and by her feet movement, they were able to establish, they began to suspect that she belonged to a particular tribe because the dance was so similar. And in fact, that was found to be so. You'll find more about that in this other book. It's called The Temne Nation of Carriacou. It was recently published. And in fact, there are a number of people from Carriacou from Sierra Leone who traveled to Carriacou for a reunion. That was just end of September there. Right. So this is a book that was published to coincide with that event. And one of the authors, you see here, is Joseph Opala. I mentioned a while ago. He has been heavily involved in establishing, helping to establish some of these links between Charleston, North America, and Sierra Leone. Okay, so this one is you. And this one is also about Carriacou. And this one is actually photographs for the archives. Right. And this one is also for the archives. Okay, so that's about it.
No, but there's more. Well, it's truly a bounty, I have to say. Christmas has come early for the archives. Thank you again to you and of course to everyone here who's presented the archives. As I said, it's adding to our work for this year, and we truly appreciate your contribution to the National Archives. Thanks once more.
Okay, thank you very much.